Hi Year 8s, I know it's been a while, but here is a recording of your lesson today. I know you have been working so patiently with all of the textbook work that I've set as cover, so thank you for doing that. I am really sorry that I am not able to get into work these days. I have unfortunately injured my knee and my foot, so I'm on crutches. I can't really walk, and so hopefully this is a bit of a break for you guys from the textbook work. I'm going to talk you through the lesson slides, and as I'm talking you through them, can you please make a note of this in your books as if we are doing a normal lesson, as if I'm there with you guys, and I'll give you time to, write down things by pausing it, or, you can pause and work at it at your own pace. Yes, that's it really. So today's lesson, is about air masses. So can you please write down the date, which is the 30th of June. Title is air masses. Those are our 3 learning objectives. And as your starter that I want you to, I'll give you about 5 minutes. Can you please think of a time when the weather has affected you? This can be both in a positive and negative way, and say how it had affected you. For example, you could write down, just using this picture, it had snowed a lot on one of the days. This meant that I couldn't go to school, for example. And then how did that impact you? Or whatever other example you can think of. Football matches, events, holidays, for example. Okay, so in a full sentence, can you please have a go at the start activity? I will pause now to give you some time, or you can pause, put this recording on pause for 5 minutes, write down your answer. Okay, so the 3 learning objectives today are to know what the different air masses are, to understand the different characteristics of air masses, and then relate the correct air mass to the different weather conditions. Luckily for you, no home learning. So air masses, the UK's weather is affected by air masses. They name them from where they come from. What you've got to do now is watch this short clip and write down the 4 different air masses that we have in the UK. So your subheading can be 4 different air masses in the UK equals, and then list 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'll click play here. If it doesn't work, you might have to click play by yourself and watch on mute with subtitles, hopefully.
Welcome to summer 2007.
This is flooding on a scale no one here can remember.
Rainfall of a month in just 1 month. The rain keeps coming, and so will the renewed threat of flooding.
Today has officially been the hottest day of the year so
For
far.
once, the brollies are being used as parasols, and even the indoor attractions are happy.
The snowfall here was the worst for 25 years.
Thousands of schools shut. We've had hundreds of lorries stuck on
Weather
the
forecasters.
These are all just kind of impacts from different weather events and how it's impacted people.
Tell us things will get worse here before they get better.
Our unique weather is all to do with our position on the planet. The whole of the United Kingdom just so happens to be slap bang under the place where 4 colossal air masses meet. Now, an air mass is an enormous lump of our atmosphere. At the surface, it's the same temperature and the same humidity over thousands of square miles. When different air masses meet, they fight for supremacy, and the one that wins dictates our weather. Ladies and gentlemen, let the battle commence! Imagine, if you will, that these guys are what the weather boffins call the polar air mass, invading our skies from the north.
Okay, so first thing you probably want to write down is polar air mass coming from the north.
bringing freezing Arctic air, sending temperatures plummeting across the UK. But before you've had the chance to put the heating on, here
And polar air mass bringing freezing weather.
comes the tropical air mass, blazing a trail from the south, delivering warm air.
Second air mass, tropical air mass coming from the south, bringing us warm air and hot weather.
From places such as North Africa and the Med. And when they clash, we get a weather front. Now, there are a lot of places in the world that sit under where the tropical air mass and the polar air mass meet. But the UK is extra special because it also sits between a large ocean, that's the Atlantic to the west, and a large landmass, that's Europe and Asia to the east. And that makes our weather even more chaotic and a bit more angry. The maritime air mass, these chaps in the blue t-shirts, suck up billions of litres of moisture from the Atlantic Ocean, then travels east to dump torrential rain on our barbecues. Finally, to the rescue comes the continental air mass, even more chaotic and a bit more angry. The maritime air mass, these chaps in the blue t-shirts, suck up billions of litres.
Okay, maritime air mass, which comes across from the ocean, especially the Atlantic Ocean.
Of moisture from the Atlantic Ocean, then travels east to dump torrential rain on our barbecues. Finally, to the rescue comes the continental air mass, cruising across the dry land of Europe and Asia, ready to go.
Fourth air mass, continental, bringing us dry weather, so maritime that comes over the ocean, brings us wet weather as it picks up moisture from the ocean, Atlantic Ocean in particular. Continental brings us dry weather coming from Europe and Asia.
The war with the cold, wet front, in a bid to give us a warm, sunny day. But that is not the whole story, because you've yet to meet the big daddy of British weather, the jet stream, and that can overpower all of those guys. It's a monumental wind that can fly across the sky at 250 miles an hour. Powerful and determined, if the jet stream heads north, it blocks the polar and maritime air masses. And it's party time for the tropical and continental air masses, now free to smother us in warmth and sunshine. Well, thanks to the jet stream, we enjoyed the hottest summer on record back in 2006.
This has obviously changed since 2006. We have had hotter summers, and we've also received some heat waves during these days.
We had 18 weeks of uninterrupted sun. Even Northern Ireland and Scotland had a decent summer. But as you'd expect, it's not always good news. If the jet stream decides to head south, pushing back the warm, dry front, we're in for more familiar, wet and chilly conditions. And that, in a nutshell, is why we have our British weather. It's unpredictable, it's crazy, it's bonkers. But it's ours. And deep down, secretly, we love it.
Okay, so that was the video. And then to summarize, you have polar, tropical, maritime, continental. Okay, now some of you might have added a bit more detail there as to where these four air masses are coming from and what type of weather they bring along with it. As a minimum, you need to at least have these four written down. Again, you can pause if it's going too fast for you. You can work at your own time. So over here, we've got a map of the UK. You've got the four air masses, where they're coming from, what they're called, what type of weather they bring with them. Okay. In a second, you are going to complete a very similar map for yourself and then stick it in your book. So you've got the map of the UK. What you need to do is, as it says in the task box, complete your map of the UK by adding on 4 main air masses affecting the UK. Draw arrows using different colours, blue for cold, red for hot, or whatever other colour you want. Include the type of air mass, for example, cold and dry, warm and wet, and include their names as well. So your completed map should look something like this. Again, pause, take your time to do this. And once that is completed, can you fold it in half and stick it in your book? What you need to do next is answer these 4 questions in 4 sentences. It says use the map in your planner, but obviously you can use your iPad instead. So, first question, what would the weather be like in the UK if the air mass was coming from Canada? So your sentence starter would be, if air was coming from Canada, the weather in the UK would be. And please take about 5 to 7 minutes answering these 4 questions in 4 sentences. You can pause, work at your own pace. Off you go. And then just to finish off, you've got some true and false questions. Okay, whoops, comes up. True or false questions. Can you please write them in your book? Oh, that was a summary, sorry, not to finish off. And then you've got some headlines there. What would the story be behind these headlines? So using what you have learnt about air masses, explain the reasons for these news headlines in the UK. You've got some sentence starters there, and then you have an extension task as well. So the first one, snow o'clock, northeast of England received record 40 centimetres overnight. So your sentence starter for that first headline would be, there was record snow in the northeast because. What type of air mass do you think occurred for us to, or dominated the UK for us to have that, for us to have so much snow? Okay, give reasons for your answer. And then do the same for the second headline and the third headline. Your extension is to come up with your own news headlines that is related to an air mass. Again, pause, work through this task, take your time. Make sure you're structuring your work with full sentences. So here you've got some answers, but they're not in a lot of detail, okay? Very cold polar continental air, you can add detail to your work. And then to finish the sentence, the reason for the difference in weather in the UK is because. Why is it that the UK receives such varied climates? Okay, it's what we have covered this lesson. Think about the different air masses we have, how many, what sorts of weather they bring with them. Thank you, Year 8s. Please can you make sure you've underlined date titles and all your subheadings.